So as I sit here thinking about the last installment that I put up on how we can get this economy moving and fix government, here is the next thing. We already talked about got to buy more American-made goods. You got to have the money flowing around in the economy to keep jobs growing, to keep people employed, to grow the economy. So everybody's learned it's supply and demand. That's kind of backwards. Again, it's demand and supply. Create the demand, the supply will be there. Of course, a business isn't going to make something that there's no demand for. So moving on, another thing we have to do is we have to help out the major engine of our economy, the small businessman. And how we do that is simple. We need socialized health care. All your developed nations have it. We don't. People point to the Canadian model and the isolated cases of some people having problems with the healthcare system, but you have that now. How many times have you been denied and had to fight for benefits that were in your benefit book? So let's be real about it. Now, when you look at what the average healthcare cost is, what the average premium is per year, it's about $16,000. Depending on who you listen to. It ranges, and $16,000 is about the median price, so we'll go with that for sake of argument. The employer pays 75% of that, or $12,000 a year. So if you have 10 employees, that's $120,000. Let's say you have 100 employees. Now you're looking at $1.2 million. You can see how this becomes a large cost, and then you have pension added in there. Now, if you have a socialized health care, that frees up that money, and you can either get better wages or you can have more money going in your pension. As a union member, I'm in the IBW. With my pay package, I pay 100% of everything. I never see that on my check, the pension part and the health care part, because a small tax break I would get doesn't mean a whole lot to me. It'd be about $20 a week or so. Big deal. You don't see it now? So we negotiated with the contractors to direct pay this. They get the tax benefit for the payment of these benefits. Now again, we're talking about as you start increasing in numbers, it starts meaning more and more to them. It helps them become more competitive. So there's got to be ways to help out the major engine of our economy, the small business. Now, a lot of people are concerned, how are we going to pay for the socialized health care? How are we going to pay for it? There's various ways we could do it. One of my ideas is, and I'm drawing off of some other models from around the world, you need to simply legalize all drugs, tax the sale on them, put that into paying for the health care. There's a model in the world where this has been done. And the system always operates in the black. Prostitution is also legal. They have to pay for a license. They have to get checked every so often. Again, that money goes into the healthcare system. If you do this, collect the money for the first year, then in the next fiscal year, start the benefits. Let's say whatever you have left over at the end of the year, you have to let set for 5 years as a reserve. At the end of 5 years, it may be appropriated for another department or program that needs the funds. Now, if you look at, it depends on, again, whose numbers you look at and who you want to believe and who's the most credible. There's any place from several billion to literally hundreds of billions of dollars a year leaving our economy to the major drug cartels of South America. And that's just for cocaine, which incidentally, I remember a little factoid from back in the 80s and 90s that for every ton they stopped getting in the United States, 1,000 more got in. You ain't going to stop it. They have been trying for years, and the problem just keeps getting worse. Now, you know about the drug wars on the border with Mexico. If marijuana was legal and the sales was taxed, you take away the market, you take away the need for that. You will see smuggling stop. You will see pretty much a socialized healthcare system that's funding itself by keeping money in the economy. Very much like an idea Pennsylvania had to use some of Adolf Hitler's World War II technology of coal liquefaction, which was it's like a light diesel that's produced, and the Focke-Wulfs and Messerschmitts were being run with not a whole lot more than high compression which is typical of a high-performance aircraft reciprocating engine, and a supercharger. They figured, well, we can keep this money in our economy because this much money, this many billions of dollars a year are leaving our economy going to big oil. Okay, so now you've got that money staying here and funding a healthcare system. Now, you can better track who's using what and actually get them the help if they're doing much more than recreational use. Another thing you'd have to do is there has to be, of course, licensed places where this is done. If you're going to go there and use this stuff, you have to hand in your keys. You're taken home because obviously you're going to be incapacitated for driving. They come check on you in the morning. If you're good to go, you get your keys back and off you go, or whatever the case may be. Another effect you'll likely see is how many kids do you know underage drank just for the thrill of the illegality of it. Once they got to age, it was no longer a big deal, and they pretty much quit drinking to the level they were drinking. So now you've got problems solved by taking away a market for them. There's less law enforcement that has to deal with something that is going on anyhow that they can't stop. You might as well turn the bad to the good. There's nothing wrong with that, because the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few or the one, obviously. Beyond that, now you don't have to worry about law enforcement agents losing their lives fighting this stuff. I think their lives are worth more than some religious dogmatic stance that has done nothing in all the history of the United States to stop it. Heck, it's likely, in some of the snuff boxes in the early 1700s, what do you think they had in there? Really? So, there's a lot of things we need to do to fix this economy, and no politician is going to be able to fix it. They do not have that control over the economy. Many hands make light work. It's up to all of us. But we have to be united in a way we haven't seen since World War II, and we have to be willing to take control. If we want the control, we have to take it back. Our government is being allowed to do whatever they want because we've taken a disinterest. We've become very blasé about it, and this is what we get. If you give the power to the few, this is the same thing the 99%ers were talking about, with the 1% of the people owning over 90% of the wealth in this country. For example, like the estimated 6 trillion American corporations are sitting on. As long as that money isn't in our economy, moving around, it's doing nobody any good. It's just stagnating the economy. If you want to go back to the way it was back in 2008, when Obama was first elected, go right ahead and vote for a Republican. Me, personally, I think both parties need to go and we need to start over. Much like we did with the Tories and Whigs who were originally in power in this country when this country started. By the way, the first 3 or 4 presidents belonged to no political party, incidentally. And they got stuff done. So y'all have to decide what you want. You want to go to back to a system where the banks ran amok and were unregulated. Romney's on all sorts of tape, MSNBC, NBC, Fox News, I don't care who you want to look at it, he said it, and if he didn't mean it well, then maybe he ought to read some Lewis G. Carroll and say what he means and mean what he says. That simple. But it ain't going to happen. We've been trying this crap with both parties for at least the last 40 years or so, and I'm going back to the 60s, okay, 50 years. Because I really think in reading history that we kind of took a left turn someplace or a hard turn off of our path about the time Kennedy got assassinated. So I'm going to use that as a reference point. It hasn't worked. I mean, I don't care which president you want to list. There was something associated with the Nixon. You think Watergate. Jimmy Carter, you think Goofy Peanut Farmer, and of course Billy Beer. Got Jerry Ford tripping down the steps of the White House helicopter. Ronald Reagan, well, Nancy was into astrology. The Clintons, you had, Whitewater, and it just goes on. It just goes on. You want to know where our debt comes from? comes from, which is another thing we have to work on, which if we keep this money in our economy, we're going to be able to do. But again, we have to take control of our government back. We have to vote the ones out that have become destructive to our rights guaranteed us. It's referenced in the Declaration of Independence what our rights are when our government becomes destructive to our rights. We have to stand up for our rights as guaranteed in the Constitution. And again, y'all better read the Patriot Act and really read it and compare it to Adolf Hitler's Enabling Act and just see how scary this Patriot Act really is. It's not a Patriot Act. It's an anti-Patriot Act. You need to question your government. Anybody that's not questioning their government is not a patriot. All our forefathers, they questioned the crown, the British crown. They continued to question their own government once the United States was out of the Revolutionary War. So y'all have to start educating yourselves. A lot of you know the stuff out there, but a lot more need to know it. A lot more need to get it together. I'm going to talk about some other stuff in the next few days. I thought I'd be doing this a little bit more often, but it's just not working out that way. So until the next time around, hasta la vista.